Lumberjack fans, Lady Jack fans, it's your boy Buckets. We're at Homer Bryce Stadium. We're about to walk inside the athletics facilities, see if we can't find the man, the myth, the legend, Ryan Ivey, the athletic director. We're gonna talk to him for a bit on the Axum Insider. Let's go, let's see if we can find him. Axum Insider, Jonathan Shuskey, AKA Buckets, with a really special guest today. We've got Ryan Ivey, athletic director here at SFA, and kind of my boss two ways, I guess, which is pretty cool dynamic. Thanks for agreeing to come and talk to me. I know that was probably a scare for you when they, yeah.
It was difficult, but when you called, and make sure that the calendar was open.
That's right. So you and I have been to kind of some of the same places over the course of our lives, careers. A University of Memphis graduate, played football there for the Tigers.
Use that term loosely because I was a punter and a holder.
There you go. Well, hey, special teams, that's the third of the game.
Right.
I spent some time in Memphis last year, literally right across the street at Christian Brothers University. You were also the athletic director at Austin Peay for a few years. I spent some time at Fort Campbell in the 101st Airborne Division. We didn't exactly cross there. I think you were a year or two behind me. And then obviously here we are at SFA, and I mean, how exciting is it to be here with me now at SFA?
Well, it's very exciting to be here with you. No question. You know, it's funny how life, especially in athletics, right? I mean, it's such a small world, and in the degrees of separation really get small when it comes to athletics in the world that we live in. So it's always fun to make those connections when you can.
All right. So before we get talking about your story and being being an athletic director and on that side of things, you got a phone call or an email at some point, I'm guessing. Somebody told you there's a 40-year-old dude that wants to come play golf at SFA. What was your initial reaction? Like, how did you respond to that right out of the gate?
Well, I mean, I kind of went back and really thought to myself, I mean, I'm 40 and I mean, I can play golf, and do I really want to try to play Division I golf? But I mean, the first question I asked straight was, hey, can he play, right? Because ultimately that's what matters. I mean, we want to make sure you can come in and play, but it was a great conversation about just your story and the intangibles that really comes with your story, right? And the ability for us, and as Trey and I talked about, the ability for you to almost be that on-the-course coach as well, and just help our student athletes and our golf team members understand that, you know, life beyond the course sometimes. And I think you being in the trenches there with them on a day-to-day basis, I think provides them a different experience and certainly a different perspective of things as well. And so I thought it was great. I was like, hey, let's do it. If we can't play, then we'll figure it out then. So.
That's right. So as an athletic director, what makes you want to get into the administrative side of an athletic department, become an athletic director? Like, what is it that kind of lined up and made you say, that's really what I want to do? Yeah,
honestly, early on, I thought I wanted to be a coach. You know, I'd been around athletics for, you know, really since I was 4 years old. It was my passion. It was what I knew. When I got to Memphis, you know, when I got there as a freshman, they said, well, what do you want to major in? I mean, I'm 18 years old. I have no idea, right? But they said, well, we have this program called sports management. And I was like, I can major in sports, and yes, so be it. That's what I want to do. And so I really thought I wanted to coach and getting into it. And as I was getting closer to graduation, I had a conversation with my coach about being a graduate assistant, really special teams and those type of things. And at that point in time, there wasn't a lot of special teams coaches and coordinators and things in college, and so it was gonna be a little bit more difficult from a path for me with really what I wanted to do. And then he said something profound to me. He said, Poison, because he called me Poison by my last name. He said, Poison, I think you'd be a great coach. He says, there's one thing you need to know about coaches. He said, there are two types of coaches, those who have been fired and those who are going to be fired, right? And so I thought to myself, well, I don't, you know, but it's one of those things where it's, all right, so how do you stay in it and create an opportunity? And it's really at that time where I had two individuals at Memphis, John Flowers, who really was our director of football operations, and then Murray Armstrong was a former coach who had been there a long time, did some facility stuff. I just admired the way that they poured into student athletes and our teams and my teammates, and people didn't see it, right? It was the behind the scenes stuff that people never saw that kept things organized and really from an operational standpoint. So that was important to me, and that was interesting to me. So I said, all right, how do I get into that role? And then that's how I started administration route.
So I think a lot of people probably have a bit of a misconception of what athletic directors do and don't do. I know one of the things that athletic directors have to do, scheduling and conflicts with scheduling and talking to other ADs and other conferences. So we've obviously had COVID, that happened, in the last couple of years. We've had, schools leave the conference and join in and things like that. Then you go and beat Duke at Cameron, and the consequences of that are we can't get people to schedule a game against you now. What are the challenges? Like, how do you navigate all that stuff as an athletic director working with, however many different coaches and trying to get all that stuff scheduled?
Well, I think part of it early on is setting a philosophy, right? Setting things that we want to do from a departmental standpoint. And one of the things that we talked about is being strategic in our scheduling. Having 50% more of home games for all of our sports is important to us, right? When we talk about building programs, building a fan base, playing at home is important to what we do. So we try to use that 50% mark as kind of our base where obviously you got league games and non-league games and figuring out, all right, how do we manage our schedules and look at it from a rotational standpoint as well. I mean, the other part, quite honestly, is just having conversations with coaches and figuring out, all right, who are our teams this year? What do they look like? What do they look like next year? Kind of projecting 2 or 3 years out of what teams are going to look like. Unfortunately, now with the transfer portal, you never know what teams are going to look like anymore. And so it's about having those conversations and thinking about, all right, what can we do here to help our program? And some of that's going to be financially driven, right? We're just at a place where we're going to have to play some guaranteed games. But we're also at a place to where I don't think we just have to do that all the time, right? Some institutions that are really at our level, they have to play multiple guaranteeing games, right? And we've got a fan base and a group that supports us financially where we just don't have to play a bunch of them at the same time. I know from a men's basketball standpoint, I know Coach Keller would love to play some additional, Power 5 games, and that's going to be hard to do. I think what we've got to do early on is looking at it really from a math standpoint of figuring out how to manage our net ranking. Obviously, we've got to win games in order to do that, but making sure that we're managing our net ranking moving forward so that we can, because at the Power 5 level now, they have figured out that they'd rather play a quad 4 game and they can manage their offensive and defensive efficiency rankings to help with their net ranking moving forward so they don't have to play us. So how do we get into that quad 2 area for them for moving forward? And so just constantly evaluating those type of things, and again, having conversations and trying to create a philosophy that creates opportunities for our student athletes to be successful.
So those student athletes, they show up here, 18-year-old freshmen, to the time they graduate, 4 years, maybe 5 years later. What's your goal as an athletic director for them start to finish when they walk out of this place with a degree?
Yeah, I tell them all the time, my big picture goal is for every one of them to leave here with a diploma in one hand and championship ring on the other. I think that's the ultimate mark of the student athlete experience, and being able to have that. There are obviously going to be a lot of things that happen between day one and graduation and winning that championship, right? And creating a culture and an opportunity for them to have a great experience. I often tell our student athletes, especially in our graduation ceremonies, that I've heard a lot, and they've heard it as well, that high school and or college are the best 4 or 5 years of your life. And I tell them that if that is the case, then I have failed them. I have failed them as the athletics director, not because what they're doing now isn't important and isn't fun, because it really is, but our job is to try to help prepare them to have the best years of their life, right? And I'm a firm believer that the best years of their lives are ahead of them. And so while they're here, we've got to create an experience, an opportunity for them to enjoy that, to become better people, right? And so that they can go off and change the world.
So you talked about culture. The last thing I want to ask you about, we hear Axum Jacks. We hear that all the time. It's our motto, our slogan here at SFA. What does Axum mean within the athletic department here?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it was one that I asked myself when I first got here, right? And obviously having been familiar with Stephen F. Austin before and being at McNeese and then at A&M Commerce, you see it all the time, right? And that was one of the first things when we started to set departmental vision, our values, our standards of behavior, and having these internal conversations of who we want to be. It was like, all right, how do we define Axum, right? And a lot of people maybe outside don't know this, but internally, our Axum is our Axum core values, right? It's accountability, it's excellence, it's integrity, it's being innovative, and then teamwork, and all those things are important. There's that acronym there, and we've got definitions of what those values means. But again, it's important for us to have that from an organizational standpoint, because what I've learned over the years is people need to have specific driven paths and goals for them to move forward. And our core values are non-negotiable for us, right? We're going to be accountable. We're going to have excellence in the things that we do. We're going to have great integrity. We're going to be innovative because we have the opportunity to do that. And then we're going to have teamwork, and we're going to be unified with that moving forward. And those are the things that are going to help drive us, right? And as we're hiring coaches or bringing in student athletes or whatever it may be, these are the things that I talk to them about, because ultimately, if you don't want to adhere to these things, that's fine. It doesn't make you a bad person. It just means you can't be here.
That's right.
Right? Because this is who we're going to be.
Last question. I know you've been hit up a little bit on Twitter about it. When are we joining the SEC?
Yeah.
Come on.
I'm waiting on the phone call from Commissioner Sankey now. I've already put everything in and looking forward. I told him I'd take about half the payout if they wanted to give that to me. So.
Well, we appreciate you taking the time and joining us. You guys stay tuned for plenty more Axum Insider coverage. We're high above one of the VIP skyboxes here at Homer Bryce Stadium. Who knows where we'll be next time. Until then, I'm Buckets. We'll see you next time.